Hello, Hybinette family. This is Garrett Gray, an old friend of Canute's from high school, before high school, elementary school. This week I was very much saddened to learn that Mr. Hybinette, Gunner, had passed on. And I have always been fond of Gunner. And when I first heard that, I wanted to come to Atlanta today to go to this get-together that Canute was throwing in honor of his father. But alas, I am stuck here in Austin, Texas, and I cannot make it to Atlanta. So I got to thinking, I was like, well, what would I really want to do if I went to this get-together on Saturday? And I just really wanted to tell stories about Gunner. And but just to start off, like I have to say, like I was always very fond of him. Every time I saw him, he was just very happy and very positive. Like I remember just going over to the house, and he would always be at the dinner table, like drinking beer or whatever he had in front of him. Just like enjoying life, always like telling a joke or being jovial, like and just like he'd laugh and like he just wanted. I always felt like he wanted me to be a part of his good time, and it was very just infectious to be around him. And I always look forward to going over to Canute's house and seeing Gunner and his mother Ingrid as well, and. I always remember going there, especially in the summertime. It always seemed like he was shirtless. I don't know if that was a common thing, but it just always seemed like in the summertime, he just loved being out in the warmth and in the heat. In fact, a lot of times I'd see him driving around his old Cadillac with no shirt on. Like it was just always bizarre to see. And I guess when we were kids, Canute and I used to be on a bowling team, and Gunner would come by from time to time, and I remember I would always just be so thrilled to see him. It was just wonderful experience when he'd come into the bowling alley. It seemed like he didn't come very often, and but when he did, it was just a sight to see, just him being himself. And my father was our bowling coach, and my father had a very particular fondness for Gunner. He never really hung out with him very much, like outside of the bowling alley, but he knew that Canute and I were good friends, and so he and Gunner became friends. And my dad always just seemed to light up when Gunner would come down to the bowling alley. In fact, 20 years later, like my dad pretty much asks me, whenever I see my father, he always asks me, how's Canute, how's Gunner? And I think my dad really always enjoyed to see him as well. And one of the stories I always liked about Gunner was Canute and I graduated high school together, and I believe Alex and I came over to the house one time, and Gunner was there again with no shirt on. Like it must have been June, so it was very hot. And Gunner had Canute's little graduation hat on his head, like sitting there in the garage, with his leg up on like a paint can, with his arms crossed. And the hat's on his head, and he's just looking at me because I have my camera, and he says, "I am the graduate. Take my picture, please." And so I took his picture, and I always remember that to this day, 20 years later. It just makes me laugh that he did that. And the other story is this is probably about 6 months later. I was in college at Florida State. And a group of us went out for a birthday party to this restaurant in this little tiny town called Carabel. It was just so tiny, there was almost no reason to go there, other than this restaurant. It was right on the water, and all of a sudden I'm talking to my friends, and I look up, and I see Canute walk by. And in my mind, Canute was supposed to be 400 miles away in school in Statesboro. And I'm like, Canute, what are you doing here? And he says, oh, I'm with my family. I'm with my parents. We're driving up and down the coast of Florida. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you mean Gunnar and Ingrid are in this restaurant too? And he said, yes. I'm like, well, can I go see them? And so I walk around the corner there, and Ingrid was there, and Gunnar was there. And like, he was like, he couldn't believe it. Like, I remember this like huge smile on his face, and he was sitting there at the table with all this food in front of him. And he's like, Garrett, what are you doing here? And I couldn't believe it. And like, I still laugh about that to this day. And I remember as the years went on after that incident, Gunnar would always come up to me and say, you know, Garrett, I always tell people about the time we met you in the town of Carabel, Florida. And I was always tickled that he always remembered that. And I just thought that was just a wonderful experience to have with him, to have that connection. I thought that was always fantastic. So I don't want to take up too much of anybody's time like here. I just really want to convey like how fond I was of Gunnar, and how I just always loved going to the house there in Dunwoody and seeing him, and you know, he always made me laugh, and I'll never forget him. Like he's just one of those people in my life that will always be up in here and in here. So, Skull.